The question, with any kind of fighting for show, is always how much is faked for the crowd.
Keep it going, tension in those blows. In order to be the sports superstars of the day, which they were, they would have to fight with a degree of style. They would have to have the panache. They would be able to move in big shapes and make the thing look dramatically exciting. But that is not phony. That is fighting well.
Well, teach me to be a gladiator.
Well, the first thing we need to do is build you up a bit.
Oh,
and the practice...
I was afraid you might say that.
The training is over here at the Pell. Well, the first thing we're going to do is build your muscles up. Get some tone into those muscles. We're going to use a heavy-weighted sword, OK, guys? And we're going to work at the Pell, this wooden post. Yeah. So you need to work around the Pell, making the cuts fluid and true, working around like that.
Right.
Have a go with that.
Okay. Oh, it is heavy, isn't it?
It is a little.
Yeah, it is.
A couple of hours of that, though, and you'll feel fine.
Yeah.
Now, I think we should just have the glasses off, however.
Right.
I think that...
Okay, so,
steam up.
Okay, so I'm going to go... Oh,
it's not bad, that's not bad. That's it, work around it. That's it. That's better, that's good.
I'm hitting it with the flat of the sword.
That's it, try and get the angle of the blade. That's good.
Yeah,
good.
I keep hitting it with the wrong bit of the sword. Oh.
Okay, keep it going, intention in those blows. Now we've got you nicely fit and your muscles toned, we will teach you the different types of weapons, lots of different types of gladiators.
Okay.
The good news is that for training, you're going to get a lighter sword. They trained with wooden swords.
Wooden swords?
Wooden swords. Possibly because the conditions they lived in were extremely brutalised, like modern prison conditions, and why people in prison don't have knives or sharp objects in their cells. There's going to be a lot of grudges, and they don't want the gladiators to injure each other when somebody's not paying for them.
Or turn against the...
Or turn against the Lannister, indeed. The first thing a gladiator needs to be able to do is he needs to be able to fight just with his bare hands. He needs to be able to do this sort of thing. Right, I think you should try that now. Give me your sword.
Oh, am I?
Now, he's going to cut down at your head. I want you to step in with your left foot, grab his wrist with your left hand.
Left foot?
Left foot. Grab left hand.
Yeah.
Look him in the eyes and go. Now punch him in the stomach with your right hand, step through with your right foot and try to break his arm. Oh, look out, you're too slow.
I'll give in. I'll give in.
There were different types of gladiator. In the Roman amphitheatre, they assumed the different characters of the enemies of Rome, of barbarian tribes, both contemporary enemies and the enemies of antiquity. They always had a light gladiator, in other words, a gladiator with very little armour, against a heavily armoured or a more heavily armoured gladiator. But there was always that excitement of the less heavily armed one looking more vulnerable, or the more heavily armed one looking slightly clumsy and incumbent. So it had inbuilt that sense of theatre. The different types of weapons. One of the more traditional combinations was the retiarius and the myrmidon. The retiarius was armed with the reti, the net, and Neptune's trident. He was the fisherman. And his enemy was the myrmidon, the sea monster. He had a manica, that is an armed guard, an armoured armed guard, which was made to look like fish scales. And his gallio, his helmet, had often a fish tail on the top. So we had this great sea monster against Neptune, the great fisherman.
So how did the retiari cope with the myrmidon?
Well, the properties of the trident are obviously it's a long weapon. It actually swells like a club towards the end. That enables me to have good control of it so that I can shoot it out and keep the more heavily armoured man at bay. I can use the forks of the trident to thrust with. I can use the haft to parry with, the head to control his sword, and like a giant baseball bat, I can sweep him out of the way. The properties of the net are, it obviously has a dramatic function for the final entrapment of the myrmidon. But before that moment, in order to fly, in order to work as a catch net, the perimeter rope was weighted. It had lead weights all around the perimeter rope. Therefore, the net itself can be used as a strike weapon in its own right, rather like a chain. Although it's possible to throw the net over this sort of distance, it's very unlikely that you would be able to ensnare your opponent. The net is quite slow in flight. The myrmidon would simply move out of the way.
Mark you, it doesn't seem much of a weapon, really, does it? I mean, I don't feel exactly trapped by this net, I have to say. If I was a fish, maybe I would. Mike, here's your net.
Thank you very much. You're quite right. In order for the net to be effective, it's not actually thrown. It's still held by the retiarius. And what happens, he needs to draw the myrmidon into close range, and then he can use it to hook him down. Now, generally, the retiarius would not kill with the trident. He would use the dagger. And if the plea for mercy came and it was denied, then the death blow would usually come with the dagger.